So when we then come back to the topic, designing that into course materials, it has to be in such a way that the student can read it or listen himself, or visually see on a video themselves doing these things. And it has to be at the same time in a way that the instructor can use the materials to put their own thoughts and their own experience, to emphasize and enhance the materials in such a way that the student learns something that they cannot get out of just the course materials.
Yeah.
So that's the challenging part of
Yeah, and I think what you're describing, like a big bucket of that is this ability to put yourself into the student's shoes, even though you're well beyond that. So it's this empathy piece of, can I walk back in the shoes of when I was learning this?
Yeah.
To apply some of that. And I always use, to drive home your point about, what people say versus what they do or what they really need. I always talk about coffee when you talk about empathy and you talk about observation. You go to a coffee shop and you run a survey and you ask everybody, you want bold, strong coffee or mild coffee or weak, watery coffee? Everybody's going to say, well, most people say, at least statistically, I want bold, strong coffee.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, great. So I'm going to give you your bold, strong coffee. That's what you need. That's what you said you need, what you want. And then if you just spend 5 minutes in a Starbucks and watch people who order that bold, strong coffee, what's the next thing they go do? They walk over to the counter and they pour some cream in or some milk, and they pop a bunch of creamy or sugars, and they dump it in, they stir it up, and they hold it up to their mouth and go, that's it. And you go, well, what do they really want? They wanted milky, sugary, sweet coffee. That's what they really want, because that's what they did, right?
Yeah.
That's the difference. And so if you're not able to put yourself back in that as a training designer, as a content designer, education designer, in the shoes of the customer that's saying, I want bold coffee, and what they really are saying is they want sugary sweet coffee, the gap between how we get from A to B is that design, is exactly what you're talking about, is those breadcrumbs of, okay, I already know this. And it's easy for someone like you who's very experienced to just say, do it this way, right? And this is what you should do. And that leaves out that middle ground of the student having the epiphany, the student coming to their own conclusion of, oh, this is what it should do. And I think that's the magic of good design when it comes to education, is that the student arrives at the conclusion that the instructor or that the designer of that education was intending them to arrive to on their own, but we were able to lead them down that path.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's a hard, needle to thread. And I think one of the keys here, and I want to talk about too, the train the trainer side, because that's a whole different discussion. But one of the keys here is, I think, understanding what is my level or my ability to practice that empathy, to practice that ability to put myself in their shoes, to remember what it was like. And sometimes it's too far, right? Sometimes it's too far away, to go back to your open water class. And you say, okay, well, maybe I can go observe some open water classes and understand what they're trying to do and what they're really, doing, rather than what they say in their review of the class or those sorts of things. But empathy is really the first foundation, I think, to any good design, but especially when it comes to adult, education, is, can I put myself in their shoes? And if I can't, then there's no way I can help them get to the outcome that I want them to get to, with the level of quality that I want them to do. And I think that's a really important point that you're kind of drawing together and bucketing it into the empathy bucket here.
Yeah, 100%. And